you guys, welcome back to my channel for another video. Today I've got something a bit different to share with you. We are talking about health and nutrition curriculum for high schoolers. If you have preteens or teenagers like me, maybe you've also been thinking lately about how to have intentional conversations with them about things like mental health, nutrition, hygiene, sleep habits, and even deeper topics like emotional boundaries and spiritual well-being. These are the kinds of things that can be tricky to navigate. You might know what you want to teach your kids, but you're unsure how to best deliver the information or share your thoughts and reasoning on certain topics. So when I discovered Apologia's Exploring Creation with Health and Nutrition curriculum, I was immediately intrigued. My oldest son will be in 8th grade next year, but I'm already starting to look ahead at high school courses, and this one really caught my eye. I want to give a big thank you to Apologia for partnering with me on this video and for sending me both the textbook and the student notebook so I could take a closer look and share it with you guys. Now, I haven't reviewed any other health curriculum yet, but this one has really set the bar high. It's so comprehensive. I'm really impressed. I couldn't remember exactly what a health course should cover or would cover, and it's really impressed me. This isn't just about nutrition and exercise, though it obviously covers that, but it's a full holistic look at what it means to become a healthy adult. Physically, emotionally, socially, mentally, and spiritually. Exploring Creation with Health and Nutrition is written in a very conversational tone. They wanted it to feel like it was speaking directly to students. It covers everything from food science and hydration to interpersonal relationships, mental health, and even topics like biological sex, gender roles, and substance abuse, all from a biblical worldview. After looking through this entire curriculum, I think it really does a great job to help kids think critically, reflect on their choices, and build healthy habits. What's important to keep in mind before beginning this course is the maturity level of your student. It is written for high schoolers, and being a health course, it's going to cover some sensitive and hot topics. What I really appreciate is that Apologia has worked hard to present the information in this course from both a medical and biblical perspective without pushing any agenda. For example, when the book talks about vaccines, it explains what a vaccine is, how it works, and the pros and cons, including immunization choices and the divide that exists in our current culture. Their goal isn't to tell students what to think, it's to give them the science and the framework for thinking critically with the biblical foundation while still leaving room for family discussion and parental guidance. This text also covers sensitive topics like drug abuse and pornography and sexual intimacy. And they do it in a way that's honest but respectful, again, with that strong emphasis on biblical truth. And I'll show this to you guys as I flip through the book in a few minutes so you can get an even better picture at how these things are approached. So they do recommend that this course be used with mature students who are ready to think about these things. And as parents, we always have the freedom to skip or modify a section if we feel that that's the right decision for our family, and Apologia fully supports that. I found their approach refreshing. It's super informative without being preachy, and I think it encourages teens to have those meaningful conversations with their parents. Apologia does recommend studying this course alongside biology in 9th grade, but that's just a suggestion, not a requirement. That's personally what I'll be doing. I would use this to fulfill the high school health requirement in my state. This course is not a lab science, so if you're looking to meet lab science requirements, this wouldn't count for that. However, like I said, it can fulfill the health course requirement that some states have for high school graduation. Now, you have a couple of different options when you purchase this course. I went the route of the physical books, so I have the textbook and I have the student notebook. You for sure are going to want the textbook, and if you are using this course for high school credit, you are absolutely going to need the student notebook as well. They also offer an audiobook version of the textbook that you can add on. This is great for auditory learners, and Apologia also offers something called AutoGrade Plus for this course, which is a service where your student would do their testing online and have it automatically graded and recorded. I personally would pass on that. That's just me. The tests for this course are all multiple choice and they don't seem like they would be too difficult to grade. So maybe save your money there. Aside from these things, because there is a focus on physical fitness and healthy habits, your student will need some basic exercise equipment for part of the course. There are some exercises suggested that use a fitness ball. You might also want an exercise mat for them, and you'll want to make sure they have properly fitting athletic shoes. These are just, going to make the physical activity portion of the course more comfortable and effective for your kids. Okay, so next I'll show you a flip through of both the textbook and the student notebook so you can see how the course is laid out and all of the great projects and hands-on activities that are included, so you can better envision if this would work for your homeschool. Okay, so here is the student notebook and here is the textbook. I'm gonna kind of be going back and forth between the two of these and showing you how they both work, but let's start with the textbook. So right in the beginning here, it's kind of hard to see that the print is a little bit light maybe on video, but this is just a little intro letter to the kids who are gonna be taking this course. I love the overall message of this letter. Basically, that God designed you and health is all about stewardship and not perfection. This entire book is going to encourage kids to take care of what God has blessed them with to the best of their abilities. And the author also shares about a loss that she faced and related this to the fact that some of the health suffering we face in this world is a result of our actions and things that we can control, but some isn't. Some of it is just the result of the fallen world. And I just thought this was a great intro to the course. Okay, so here is the table of contents. There are 15 different modules in this course. And if you want to spread this course over an entire year, they have it split up into 3 days of work per week, and recommend that it'll probably take about an hour a day to get through the work. So that would be the schedule you would want to take if you're spreading this out over the year. And I'll show you in the student notebook in a minute how they have everything all scheduled out. If you wanted to work more quickly, you could complete this in a semester. You would want to do about 1 module per week if that's the case, but you can use this to satisfy any state requirement for high school health credit that you might need. This is just, again, a little introduction to the course. On the back here, they talk about the materials that are needed. They do have some online resources. So here they talk about how to access those, how to get those, what they call book extras online. This is where all of your answer keys are going to be as well. And then we start right off with module 1. So I'm gonna open up the student notebook really quickly and just kind of, like I said, go back and forth between these two. So in the front of this, before they get started, they've got another introduction. I liked reading through this. I loved some of the information in here actually. They talk about some great study skills in this part right here. So kind of teaching kids how to take notes and how they should be studying for this course. And I actually learned a couple things here that I'm going to start implementing with my kids right now, because this is something that we could really improve on. But they talk about how, you're going to use this notebook to be taking notes as you read through the modules. And then when, you're studying for your test or working over the test study guides, you should first try to do that just from your own knowledge. So see if you remember most of the answers. And if you don't, then you should be able to go back and use your notes to help you. And hopefully you've taken really good notes and that's all that you need to access. But if not, then you would go back to your book and maybe, learn a little bit more, relearn some stuff. and go from there. So I just thought the study tips were really great. And like I said, we're going to be implementing that a little bit ourselves. The tests in this course are all multiple choice tests, but I also like how they kind of talk about the grading. So they recommend that when your kids take an exam, if they miss anything, to let them go back and try to fix their mistakes and give them half credit for it. So again, just some good tips on grading here, giving you everything that you're going to need for assigning your high school credit for this course. And you can even keep record of your grades right here in this notebook. And then we get into our suggested daily schedule. This is a really easy plan to follow. So it'll tell you your week number and then exactly what you need to do for each day. So having this all here, I mean, really, I love when courses are laid out like this because you don't even have to plan anything. You can just check it off right from the book. And then we get into, again, our module 1, and this is where they're going to be taking notes as they go through the module, and then having some extra work in here as well. So let's talk about how the modules are all set up. So every module is going to start off with a little introduction, and then of course they're going to have some text to read within that module. I love how God-focused this curriculum is. So, you know, right away you are going to be hearing truth about health. You know, this is talking about design and stewardship and being proactive in your health. And I just think that it's a great message. So students are going to have some reading to do. You'll notice that the text is, you know, very conversational. That's how they designed it. They've got great visuals. They have words that are bolded, kind of to point out for kids to pick up on. They've got little sections. Think about this sections that are other things that are important and relevant to the topic being studied. So the kids are going to do their reading. And while they're reading through this, they should be taking notes in their student notebook. And then at the end of each day's lesson, they have these on your own questions. So these are going to be the questions that they'll answer in their student notebook. So those are all written out and they can just fill in the answers right here. So then we come back to the reading, and you're going to notice throughout this, there are a lot of different projects that they do. And again, these are going to be done in their notebook. And I was kind of confused about how these worked at first. So when it says project 1.1, nature versus nurture, I thought that was the heading, and then I was to read this and that was kind of the project. But when you get this heading that there's a project, you actually have to go to the student notebook to do that project. So again, we see the on your own questions. So those are the rest of the questions that were on this page. And then if I flip the page, this is where the project comes in. So there's project 1.1, and there's actually going to be information on this page, and everything is here that they're going to need to be able to do that project. So here's the next project in this module. And all of that is going to be located in here. All right, so I think there's over 50 or so different projects that are woven throughout this course. All right, so then when we get to the end, we've got our study guide. So they're going to use this to review for their tests. And then all of the tests are located in the back of this notebook. So those are going to be right here. And like I mentioned, so they've got all of their tests here. So I'm not sure, you know, you can either tear them out if you want to keep them separate so your kids aren't looking at them ahead of time. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but those are all back here. And again, they're all multiple choice, except there are 3 modules that don't have tests. They call them project modules, so they have a little bit longer projects to go with them. But all of your tests are multiple choice, and they are all in the back of this student notebook. Okay, so that was an overview of the first module. Then when we get to module 2, This module is going to discuss physical causes for mental and emotional disorders. They also will learn about the nervous system and the endocrine system and how those are going to influence emotions and thoughts. Now, I'm not going to flip through every single page in the book, but I'll flip through a lot of it so you guys can see. And if there's something that you want to pause so that you can read a little bit more fully, if there's something that you're curious how this course covers a subject, definitely feel free to pause the video so that you can read that a little bit more closely. All right, module 3. This module is going to be about mental health. I love the biblical worldview approach. I can say that about every module, right? The biblical worldview approach is so great throughout this course. Right, so even right here in this little introduction, you're placed here and expected to trust God in whatever situation comes along. Much of what happens around you is out of your control, and you're not responsible for final outcomes in these places. You do have responsibility though. God lets you choose your attitude, what thoughts you admit into your mind and dwell on, and what action you will take. The ability to think clearly, make wise decisions, and control your emotional release is a gift from God. So the project for this module, it says list of self-care tips. So they are going to, if I show you in the student book, they are just going to be given some self-care tips in their textbook, and they are just listing them out here. So I thought, a lot of these tips were very good. So these are going to be the things that are written here in red that the students have to copy into their notebooks. I love this part here talking about wisdom. I thought this was really good. So just show you a few more pages in the book here. And then let me show you guys a couple of the other projects that are in this unit right here. So we've got decision-making practice, a digital media fast, and then caregiver encouragement. So I think the projects are all really, really thoughtful and just are great for kids to work through and think about at that high school level. All right, this right here, I think this is another really great addition. All throughout this book, they have these little sections where it says, consider a health profession. So they have all sorts of health professions that they talk about throughout this book just to give kids an idea of what types of professions are out there regards to health. So if it's something they're interested in, they kind of have that little seed planted and they can look into it further or just keep that in mind. All right, in this module here, they are going to be learning about the value of others. They're going to learn about gender roles, family, socialization in the community, friendship, and conflict resolution. So there's this part that talks about our culture, the current confusion between sex and gender roles right here, gender roles in the home, family responsibilities, talking about birth order and extended family, defining socialization, talking about friendships, finding a best friend, counterfeit friends, some great projects on self-worth and peer pressure, introducing yourself to a new group. And then here we talk about a little bit about dating and peers of the opposite sex, which I thought this was all really good. I agree with a lot of what they're talking about here. My view on dating has definitely changed as I've grown up and grown closer to the Lord and understand now the purpose of marriage and things that I didn't understand when I was a kid. So I think having this in here and having an opportunity to talk to your kids about your beliefs on this type of thing is really great. And then again, this section talks about pornography, and again, another sensitive topic, but I love the information here, love how they talk about these issues. Just so you know, this is kind of what's in here, so you know how they present this and how you might want to approach this with your kids. And then I forgot to mention, at the end of every module, they've got answers to all of those on your own questions. So the things that kids are going to be answering in their notebooks, all those answers are here at the end of the modules. All right, in module 5, here they're going to be studying their senses and how to take care of them. Again, I love just how it talks about design throughout this and how all of this stuff is by God's design. One of the projects that I thought was really great in their student notebook is they go through and they figure out how many fire alarms the house needs. So just a great exercise to do, not only for now, but to prepare them for adulthood when they are going to need to do this someday. Let's flip to module 6. All right, this module is going to cover digestion and urination. So we've got digestion here, talking about the mouth and teeth. We were just doing this with my son in his science class this morning, talking about wisdom teeth, importance of taking care of our teeth, finding the point of satiety, got muscles of digestion here. All right, and then let's flip to module 7. All right, this module covers macronutrients. So they're going to be learning about carbs, fats, and proteins. And this project in here, they're going to be keeping a food diary. So I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so this is their project in this module, keeping that food diary. And then they also have some food tips that they're going to be writing down that are scattered throughout this chapter. So kind of like that other chapter where they had tips on self-care, they've got a bunch of different food tips that they're going to write down and learn in this module. All right, so this module is macronutrients. The next module, they're going to learn all about micronutrients, so just other nutrients that we need. The next module after this is let's look at what you eat. This is a project module, so that means with this one, there's no test at the end. Kids are going to learn about what's in the food that they eat and how they can improve their choices. So I'll show you the student book for this one. So since it's a project module, they'll have a lot of stuff in here. There's their notes section, and then here is the first project. Okay, so basically figuring out how many calories, how many macronutrients they're going to need, and just really looking at their diet and what they're eating overall. All right, so that's the big project for that module. In module 10, they're going to be learning about the respiratory and the cardiovascular system. Module 11 talks about bones and muscles. And then module 12, this is where they're going to need some of that extra equipment. They're going to be putting together a daily exercise routine for this module. And their project for this one is a half an hour of daily exercise. So that is going to be an important project for this module, keeping an exercise record. All right, in module 13, they are going to learn about immunity and how the body protects us from harmful things. And this, I'll show you how they approach the topic of vaccines, which can be one of those hot topics today. So right here on this page is where they talk about immunization, choices, and vaccination. So again, I think they really try their best to present the facts and not take any one side or the other. And it's just, I think they approach it in a great way. And then right here, again, talking about that issue of vaccination and that divide that there is in the culture today. So great conversation starter that you can use with your kids to talk about this. All right, module 14, this is another project module. This is going to be about seeking and cultivating peace. There's lots of advice in the beginning of this little introduction about finding a mentor and just being aware of people who don't act on good advice. So I thought that was a really great introduction. Talks about rest, how rest is super important, taking breaks, leaving margin in your life, the sleep cycle, choosing joy in spiritual life, facing loss, so challenge of hardship, preserving contentment, rejecting perfectionism, making wise health purchases, and giving serious thoughts to your career. And then here are all of the different projects that are in this module. So keeping a sleep record, planning a Sabbath rest, gaining joy, what makes a good day, and then doing some career brainstorming. Okay, and then for the last module, we get into the gift of reproduction. So this module is all about the male and female reproductive systems. It also is going to cover moral implications of misusing these systems and topics like embryology and human development. So this is going to teach all the parts of the reproductive system for males and females. It's done in a very fact-based way. There are diagrams. I'm going to skip over them because I'm not sure exactly what I'm allowed to show on YouTube, but they're typical diagrams that you would expect. This module is also going to talk about puberty for both boys and girls. Again, in a very fact-based and, in my opinion, God-honoring way. All right, so here's a section where they're talking about reproductive system and then puberty, a little bit of puberty talk. And then here's the puberty for girls. They talk about ovulation and menstruation. And then I'll just flip through the rest of this module. We've gotten through some of the different diagrams. So if you want to pause and see how they talk about or explain some of these topics, which can be a little bit hard to talk about sometimes with our kids. You can see how they approach it in here. Feel free to pause the video if you're curious about any of that. And then we've got a final challenge at the very end. They've got a different project here. Since we're at the end of the book, they've got a project for young women and a project for young men. So what those are, Here's the one for young women. And then here's the project for young men. So that's a full look inside Exploring Creation with Health and Nutrition from Apologia. I hope this walkthrough helped you get a better feel for what the course is like and how it might work for you and your high schooler. Personally, I love how Christ-centered and practical it is and how it just opens the door to important conversations with our teens that we might otherwise struggle to start. This is so much more than just checking off a health credit. It's an opportunity to equip our kids with wisdom, habits, and biblical perspective they'll need to make healthy choices as they grow into adults. If you have any questions about the curriculum, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. And if you've used this course before, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences too. Thanks again to Apologia for partnering with me on this video. I'll leave links in the description below where you can check out the curriculum for yourself if you'd like to. And you can use the coupon code BLESSED10 to take 10% off your order if you're purchasing this for your homeschool. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you, and thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time.